option, you please allow others to share. Yeah, and start recording here.
I have given Prabhu. Now you can share.
Okay. Okay. I think you are able to see, right? Once again, I'll also see. Did you give Prabhuji sharing option?
Yes, Prabhu. Multiple participants I have given.
Okay. Prasanna Prabhuji, I think you can start now. You can share your screen and then you can start.
Okay, if you all can see it.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu, you can start.
Okay, Hare Krishna to everybody. Before we can get started, so I'm welcoming to all of you to the 14th chapter, the 14th day of this series, which is running for 18 days. So a quick introduction of myself. My name is Prasanatma Balaram Das. I've been associated with ISKCON for the last 12 years. So my wife and I, we've been in this together. It's been a wonderful journey for us. So for a living, yes, I used to work. I was in the corporate for 25 years. And then now I'm trying to do something on my own. So that's my background. I'm from Bangalore. Yeah, I think... Is that okay, Prabhu? So this introduction is fine?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Haribol.
Okay, so before we get started, I just want to first of all congratulate and thank each one of you for being on the call. So today is the 14th day, and there's a very auspicious month that is going on, which is called as the Purushottam month, and this month, any spiritual activity that we do, there is a benefit which is 1,000 times as per the scriptures. So congratulations to each one of you, because in this month, continuously for the last 13 days, today being the 14th day, you've been listening to the Bhagavad Gita discourses that have been given by various devotees, and you've been getting involved in Krishna and then his words, and then thinking of Krishna, speaking about Krishna, hearing about Krishna. So that's a wonderful devotional activity, so to speak. And so definitely there is a lot of benefit that each one of you will get. And I also pray to the Lord that he continues to shower his mercy so that you, or rather all of us, continue to advance in this wonderful Krishna consciousness. So like we all are aware, now all knowledge is coming from the Guru. So before we start, I'd like to have the small prayer, which is the invocation prayer for the Guru. So Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschayata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so now we can start. We can start, right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. So Bhagavad Gita as it is, that's the book that we are discussing, and we are in chapter 14, like I said earlier. Chapter 14 is actually called The Three Modes of Material Nature. So that's the name of the chapter. So as we move on, just wanted to quickly refresh a little bit on what you all discussed yesterday, which was on the 13th chapter, where there is a description of the material nature and how that material nature is binding the soul. So at this point, especially for people who are hearing it the first time, it might be a little difficult to relate. But one thing that I have seen is, keep hearing and then keep making an effort to understand, then all of a sudden, with the mercy of the Lord, with the mercy of Krishna, we will definitely understand. So I wouldn't worry much if I'm hearing it the first time and I'm not able to grasp everything in its entirety. So not to worry too much. But continue to hear and then keep that effort going. In fact, that's what is very pleasing to the Lord. And then He reciprocates in His own way. So you would be amazed to see how the reciprocation happens, and then I hope you'll remember these words then. Okay. So in the 13th chapter, in the verse 22, there is this reference that is being made to material nature. So the living entity is in association with the material nature. So what is this living entity? That's the soul that we are talking about, which is in association with the three modes of material nature. So today we will try to understand what are these three modes, but before that, what happens because of this binding that is there, that the soul is bound to this. So what happens? So in the purport, we can see that is 13.22, the verse. Purusha prakriti sthito hi bhumte prakriti jangunan karanam gunasangasya sad asadyo janmashu. So that's the verse Krishna is saying, and the meaning is like this: the living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with the material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. So the he here is the soul that is being referred to, that living entity. So now, what is happening when such a thing is happening? This verse becomes very important for an understanding of how the living entity transmigrates from one body to another. You all have heard in the past, in the few days, and even earlier also, how we are all souls, and then we occupy a certain body, and before this there was another body that we occupied, so on and so forth. Even in the second chapter, Krishna is saying the same thing. Anything that is born, jatasya hi dhruvam mrityu, dhruvam janma mrityasya cha. So anything that is born will have to die, and anything that is dying will be born again. And we've also seen in the earlier chapters where we kind of transmigrate, that is, move from one body to another in the 8.4 million types of bodies that are available. So that includes plants, aquatics, moving creatures, non-moving creatures. There are many classifications, and then there is also an exact indication of what are the number of entities that are in each of these. So that's again what is given in the scriptures that I'm talking about. So like this, we have gone through this, and then the scriptures also say that then finally we come to this position of the human body, which is a very important destination to attain, because this destination of the human body gives us an opportunity to transcend or break the cycle of birth and death, which is not possible in other bodies like animals or plants and all that. So where they will just have to go through. It's like coming to 10th standard, and then you clear this, then you will be moving on to college or pre-university, whatever you want to call it. So like that, and then the school life kind of gets over if you clear 10. But otherwise, still then there is no way that one could jump from third or fourth to directly to a college entry. That's not possible. So there again, it is sequential. So after 1, then 2, and 3, and 4. So likewise, there are certain rules and laws which govern the transmigration of the soul, and then accordingly, then we've been changing bodies, and finally we've now come to this position. Then what is the binding thing that happens? I'll just quickly read here. See, this change is compared to the change of dress that is due to the attachment to material existence. So we have kind of got conditioned to be attached to this particular way of living, you know. So we need to have a body and use that body to do some activities and enjoy, and then whatever sense perceptions that are there with the body that I carry, I try to maximize that and then enjoy the most. So this has been the indicator. This has been the nature of us. I mean, you take any, even if you take an animal, that's exactly what it does. It wants to enjoy it to the maximum based on the senses that is available to it, be it a cat, a dog, a tiger, or anything. And even human beings are the same. So now, because of this conditioning, we have this propensity to enjoy using the body. And as long as it is captivated by this false manifestation, this manifestation or whatever I said now is false as per the Shastras, because it is changing. So something that is permanent is called as truth in Sanatana Dharma. As long and then due to, and why does this happen? That is because of the desires that each of those individuals have, and that desire is over the is to lord it over this material nature. Whatever I see, I want to maximize it. I want to get the most out of it. That's the type of attitude that we have, and that kind of puts us into various bodies. What type of bodies? It could be a body of a demigod, sometimes a man, sometimes a beast, as a bird, as a worm, and then as an aquatic, as a saintly man, and so on. And then, you know, it could be as a, and so on and so forth. So this is what we saw in the 13th chapter. And then we also try to get some happiness or passion and then madness. So this is the description of the three modes that we are going to see now. So the first indication for the three modes of material nature came in that particular shloka in the previous chapter. So the next logical thing is to understand what these three modes of material nature are, because that seems to be the culprit which is keeping us here. It's kind of tying us down to this, what do you call, the human body, and then or any other body, and then we are kind of suffering because we keep moving from one body to another. And this moving of one body to another is not intelligence, because that's we have to suffer, where there is janma, mrityu, jara, and vyadi, that is birth, death, old age, and disease, which because of which we are suffering a lot. And in different bodies, we end up suffering. We actually want to enjoy in all the bodies, but actually the contrary is what is happening. So with this as the background, and then we understand now Krishna is saying that it is the material nature that is kind of binding us to this. So I think it is prudent for us to understand what is this three modes of material nature, and that is how this 14th chapter is all about. There are only around 26, 27 shlokas, so it's a very short chapter. So we should be able to kind of finish in time. But before I start that, I just want I want to give an idea of what all these 18 chapters are all about. So the chapters from 1 to 6 gives us the knowledge of the self. Who am I? I'm not this body. And then there are various activities associated with us, which are classified as karma yoga or buddhi yoga or dhyana yoga. And we saw under each of these heading, what are the activities that generally a person can do, and what is the position that the yogi or the practitioner will attain by doing that particular activity. So we saw that in detail up to the 6th chapter. This is very high level, I'm saying, just to get our bearing right. Then after that, then from the 7th to the 12th chapter, there is a shift in the gear, and then we move on, or rather Krishna starts talking about himself. He talks about how to attain him, that is attaining the supreme. And then he's also talking about the confidential knowledge, which is bhakti yoga. And then he's also talking about the most confidential knowledge, which is how to do bhakti yoga, or what is the mood in which one has to do bhakti yoga or devotional service. And that is the service which is without any attachment to results and without any motivated or expectations in return. That is, we call it as the ahaituki and apratihata. So that's the type of service that one has to do. And then he says, and then he's also talking about his opulences. I am this, I am that. And then what is his position? What is his position with respect to the material world? And there are many information that he's talking about himself. So we have a very fair idea now of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then there is also this Vishwarupa Darshan, or the universal form, that is displayed, where the Lord is showing how he is pervading the entire universe. And then there is also, Krishna talks in the 12th chapter about what gives him pleasure, and then and what pleases him rather, and then what are the activities that you should do so that I will notice you, or I will be pleased with you. So in this way, there is a lot of information that we see up to the 12th chapter. Then from 13th to 18th, what happens is, these are all consciousness or very motivational in type, and then it kind of brings out the consciousness of the individual. What is my prerequisite? What should I have with me so that I am able to understand these things properly, and I am able to, if I see anything, then I am able to question it correctly, and then develop the right mentality, develop the right motive, and also do it in the right spirit. So this is more inward looking. It is introspectional in one way that we can say, because it gives us points which we can dwell on and think about. So on that note, we can move on to see what is the three modes of material nature. So there is also what is divine, what is demoniac. There are many things, and then there are different types of faith, and there is this perfection of renunciation. So all these are to do with the self, on how I should, what is my position, how I should put myself so that I become favorable for the Lord's mercy. So on that note, then we can continue. So in this chapter, verses 1 to 9, Krishna is giving the knowledge of the three modes. Like I said, the chapter itself is three modes of material nature. So we have that. And then, just a second. Yeah. And then fixing one's knowledge on this, what is the benefit that we are going to get? That's the next thing. And then how Krishna is responsible, or he is the reason for this total material substance in all the living entities that we see, how he impregnates them, how he gets them working so that, the whole creation comes about. So we'll take a quick look on that. And then there is also this discussion on material nature, which consists of the three modes, which is the most important thing. So what are those modes, we will say, and how these modes condition us. So we are actually cataloging our emotions and then trying to see where we stand in this particular chapter. Okay. And yeah. So now, what is the benefit that we'll get by knowing all this? So one can get perfection by knowing this. That's what Krishna is saying. So we can be fixed in transcendental knowledge, and then it will help us to attain a spiritual form which is equal in quality with Krishna, and be engaged in devotional service eternally. And in the spiritual world, full of variety, which is there, which is unlike the impersonal liberation. So there are a few points that we should be aware of, because somebody might say, what's the point in trying to understand all this? So there are two things. One is there is spiritual benefit, and also when we continue to live our material existence, we are able to change ourselves, and that's the main thing. It's like a feedback mechanism. So it tells us how I am doing, what is my nature, what is my position. So if I know that, then what is it that I need to do to move from here on to the next thing? So the next phase, and then move closer to the Lord. So that's the perspective that Krishna is giving in the very first shloka, where the Supreme Lord is saying, again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection. And it is not just, I am just telling you something. It is this, people in the past have also kind of practiced this, and they have been benefited. So you can hear this, and then you can also benefit. That's the message that Krishna is giving. And then he's also saying what happens when we acquire the transcendental knowledge. So where one acquires the qualities which are equal to the Supreme Lord. So, in fact, even in the 8th chapter, we have seen how if you think of me, then you will attain my nature. That's what Krishna is saying. So, this is again a reiteration of that particular statement that Krishna is making. And then he's also saying that by attaining the quality of the Supreme Lord or of God, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what happens is we become free from the repetition of birth and death. So our aim is to be free from that, right? And to be free, then we'll have to attain the same quality of the Lord. And to attain that quality of the Lord, we need to understand where we are now, and then what is it that I need to do, in what way, in what mood, and then how I can move there. So that's the long and short of our entire aim in life. And then Krishna is also talking about material substance. So there's something called as Mahatattva. This is a sum total of all the material things that are there, that we see in this material world, from which the creator kind of draws all the material that are required, and then the creation happens. So this creation, what you see of earth, that is earth, water, fire, air, all of that, and then including the material nature, and then mind, intelligence, and then ego or false ego, that is the living entities. All of that is present in the Mahatattva. And then what happens is the Lord just glances over it, and by his glance, the whole activity of creation kind of kickstarts. And then that's a whole entirely different discussion, which is very clearly given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we will not talk too much in detail on that. We'll just try to understand that how Krishna is the one who kind of starts this, and that starting is done by like kind of everything is there, and then there's this big man who comes, and then he just presses a button, and then that whole power station is up and running, right? So something like that. So this Mahatattva is there, and everything is there. So Krishna just glances, and then automatically things start moving, and then it falls in place, and then there is this a path it takes, which is already predetermined, and then it goes on like that. So after he kind of glances it, then he is kind of aloof, because it is all happening automatically. That is what we should know. And we've seen in the 9th chapter also how Krishna has said that I am, though I am in it, though everything is in me, I am not in it. So it says that Matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham tusve avastitaha. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So there are many such shlokas where Krishna is very clearly saying how he is separate from his energy, or his energy which is doing the various works, different types of energy. So on that note, then we saw how material nature then acts as the mother, and then she starts to bring about all the changes that we see. A good example that is given is, I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but scorpions actually are coming out from rice. That's what people thought, because what used to happen was scorpion, the mother scorpion used to go and then lay eggs in the rice bag or the urn or whatever, the vessel in which it is kept, and then it goes away. Then after that, suddenly you will find that there is scorpions that are coming. So people thought that scorpion is actually coming from rice. Rice is the reason for the scorpions to come. But actually, we know that's not how it is. It is because of the mother scorpion, which has gone and laid the egg much before, and then it just gave a platform for it to kind of come alive, and then the baby scorpions come out. So like this, we can understand how Krishna is in the background, though we might hear or see that somebody else is responsible for certain thing to come about, like Brahma created the universe, and then so on and so forth, which is also true, but it is all based on the instructions or the potency received from Krishna. So that is the right understanding. And then so once this creation happens, then the living entities, although they are transcendental, is captivated by the three modes. So now, despite wanting independent enjoyment, then they are subjected to these three modes of material nature, which is the quality of the creation that is happening. You can see in this picture how you have Krishna at the top there, and then there are these three, personified material natures. So what they are, I'll tell you. And then they are actually controlling the living entities here. So do you think there is a lot of freedom in this particular picture? I don't think so, right? And but then we think we are free, and then I can do whatever I want. But actually, that's not the case. So this binding or this control which is there is basically based on how much of control each one is having. This material nature 1, 2, and 3. What is the extent of influence or control that they have on each individual is depending on the various karmas or the false ego, and then the karma that each one is carrying, and based on that, that the control of one is stronger than the other, and so on and so forth. So we will discuss those things as we move ahead. Okay. So now I'll tell you what these three modes are. So what are these three modes of material nature? One is called the mode of goodness. The other one is called as a mode of passion, and the other one is called as a mode of ignorance. So in Sanskrit, if I have to say, it is Sattva Gun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. So you would have heard of these three. I mean, it's not something new that we are seeing, but we are just trying to give a little different perspective so that we understand all this better. So mode of goodness is purer than the other. Of course, the best mode is knowledgeable. And then that person is not affected by material miseries. And then he is free from sinful reactions. So even because the person in the mode of goodness will not do something which will give him sinful reactions. He will not do something wrong. He will not, because he will be straightforward, and then he will just do what is right. He will tell the truth, or he will not unnecessarily harm somebody, and so on and so forth. So all those good qualities are present in that person. So there is no sinful reaction. Then there is advancement in material knowledge. He understands a lot of things. And then there is also the general disposition of such an individual is they are happy, then they are satisfied, then they have some knowledge. But there is one small negative thing. They have this feeling of superiority to others. So, you know, that holier than thou type of a feeling. I'm like this, and then, you know, so though they have these qualities or many good qualities, they are happy and all that, which looks quite fine. But then they also carry this feeling of superiority to others, which is actually a function of the ego or the false ego. So that seems to work maximum in the mode of goodness. Why that happens, we will dwell on that. It's food for thought. But mode of passion. So what happens in the mode of passion, or a person who is governed by this mode of passion, what are the qualities that he or she will exhibit? They have this attraction between the sexes. There is unlimited desire and longing. So that is like kind of lust. That's the word that we use. I mean, don't restrict the word lust to only a sexual type of feeling. Lust means, I mean, at least in the Sanatana, I mean, when we are reading these scriptures, when they talk about lust, it is all inclusive. Any strong desire is lust. Like in the sense you could lust for a big house or a car. That means a very keen and intense and unlimited desire, and where you would do anything to get it. A lustful nature to accumulate wealth. You know what I'm talking now. I mean, so it's not just restricted to the word generally used for outside, you know, where people refer to it for sexual urges. So it's not restricted to that, but yes, it includes that. And then they are bound to fruitive activities, because see, what happens is they want to do something. They are so passionate that they will do work, and then, but at the same time, they will expect some results because we know how only with passion, then there are many things that come about. Like if you have to build a skyscraper, the amount of passion that you need to have to create that edifice has to be very strong. Then it happens. And then the passion to earn money, passion to do better than the others. I mean, be it in education, be it in work, be it in any of the things, every activity that we do, even in sports and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of passion, and then there is this one-upmanship. So which is what is the mode of passion all about. And then there's this third guna, which is called as the mode of ignorance, which is darkness, where the living entities are deluded, and means they don't know what is happening. They cannot understand things properly. Conditions one to madness, to laziness, to sleep, to procrastination. They're always dejected and addicted to intoxicants. So they'll say, "Na kuch nahi hoga, nothing is."
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, give me 2 minutes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, so we got disconnected and we're all back now. So, okay, I'll continue. Just a minute, let me just share. So if you can share so that I can, give me the control so that I can share.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can see your screen. Hare Krishna. You can continue, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhu, so if you can just go through the slides, we can move on downwards. And yeah, after this, yeah, no, sorry, please go back. Thanks. So always we are actually in, what is the slide number? Okay, mode of ignorance I just described, and how we kind of get into madness, laziness, procrastination, kuch nahi hoga type of attitude. So next slide, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Next slide.
Prabhu, can you move to the next slide? Okay, so now what happens is with these three modes, how it keeps us grounded to the material life is being seen. Again, the same photo is seen now. Now, what's happening is goodness, the material nature, which is titled as goodness, they're satisfied with the work and intellectual pursuits. Generally they become philosophers, scientists, or educators. Also priests and sages too. They are self-satisfied to follow dictations of the super soul. So goodness is a comparatively, like, it's more closer to the super soul, but that's how then he wants as much as he can and spends on good causes like hospitals, charity, institutions, etc. Desires to speak too loudly and cannot hear the voice of the super soul. So this is how the person who's in the passion behaves, or he comes across as. And then ignorance, of course, is like laziness, and then they don't want to do anything. See, now you can actually understand how these things are coming about. What is happening is this material world, the current world that we live in, is engineered in such a way that it kind of kindles the passion in everyone, and then it kind of forces us to be passionate. Now, these three modes that are there, goodness, passion, and ignorance, it is not that each one has one quality. Now comes the difficult part for understanding. All the qualities are present in all of us. It's just the nature, to what extent it is present, that is what gives rise to various personalities. So there is this wonderful, Prabhu, the next slide. There's this wonderful example that is given of the three primary colors which are there. Now, we all know how this three, yeah, that's the slide proof. Yeah, how the three primary colors are bringing about various colors, which are like in thousands or millions of colors, by just varying a little bit of quantity of each one of them, right? So in that way, these three modes are, you can compare it to the three colors, and then any variation in small variation in the mixture that you see, a new type of personality is seen, you know. So that is why you have so many different types of personalities that you see in the modern world. See, now we'll be able to kind of relate to many of the things that we see, or this, what happens is that is defining the character of that individual. See, there are people by nature who don't get angry at all. Why does that happen? There are by nature people who get angry at the drop of a hat. And then later on, they'll say, see, actually, I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to get angry, but I don't know what came over me. And then I just behaved in that way. I mean, you see, you open the newspapers, you see how ghastly things are done. People end up murdering somebody in the fit of rage. What is this fit of rage? This fit of rage is a combination of ignorance and then passion. So passion to do something, so they lose their patience, and then they don't have the right knowledge. So definitely there is ignorance there. So ignorance and passion in a certain way will give this. And now what happens is, to make matters worse, it is not constant. It's not that, okay, this is the set of things that I've been given with. I know I have these things in this type of a quantity. Now I'll work towards it to make it better. No, it doesn't end there. It becomes a little more complex. What happens is, there is a constant fight between the three modes for supremacy. So at one point, we might be in a very sattvic mood. So we might say, no, I'm in a very good mood. So everything looks nice. The whole world is nice. You might smile at your neighbors and so on and so forth. And then you might not think so unfavorably of somebody whom you don't like also. You might even smile at that person. So suddenly you feel very light. And then as the day progresses, because of this conditioning that is there, because of that pulling of those ropes, you know, just imagine the pictures that we saw, then the mood changes, and then suddenly we become irritable. Suddenly we become, we want to kind of put down somebody, and then we move into these other modes. So there is always the supremacy for one. A sum total of all of this together is our personality. So now we don't have to be worried, even if we are like, because we have experienced all of this. Whatever I'm saying is not something, Prabhu, can we move to the next slide? Is not something that we are not aware of. We are aware of it. What we are doing is we are just trying to catalog them and then give it a name so that we are able to understand that particular aspect, and then we will see what happens. Now, here is an example of some of the things, like what are the activities that are there, and what is probably the most probable activity that a person in goodness will do, or a person in passion will do, or a person in ignorance will do, or when he is governed by any of these three modes. So activity with respect to books, of course, he will read motivational biography. I mean, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just to give an idea of how to understand the whole thing. And then a person in passion might be very much inclined towards thrillers, science fiction, and all that. And person in ignorance, not knowing what to do, might be looking at some objectionable stuff that is not kind of approved by society at large. And then you will also have in the nature of work that each one is doing, where goodness is basically teaching. And then a person who is in the mode of goodness takes to teaching, that's when then you have wonderful teachers, because they have patience. They are sattvic people, so they are always happy within themselves. So there is no envy, and then they would give the complete knowledge for that this thing, and they are also able to see everyone as one and not try to differentiate. That differentiation is again in the mode of passion, right? And then also ignorance. So likewise, okay. Anyway, so they take to teaching, and then the people in passion, they go on and then rule the corporate or try to rule or whatever, and they want to make money. They want to make money in any ways. I mean, somebody might be doing it in an honest way. Somebody might be doing it in a dishonest way. So here what happens is the honest person, even though his passion is more, he is little inclined to goodness, and the dishonest one is inclined to ignorance. So now with this example, you can kind of see where those two categories fit, even though they both have passion. So one is better than the other, of course, but that is again in the material front. So like, and then another interesting thing is the time of the day, there is this ruling of a certain material nature. So 4 a.m., that's in the morning onwards, it is sattvic nature. So generally people are very good and then very pious. They are not very angry because that mood is still not set in, right? So there is some amount of calmness in them and all that. And then later on, as the day progresses, then they become more passionate. Oh, I have to get ready, I have to run, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then the whole remaining part of the day, there is passion. And then night is when there is ignorance. So that's when even our thoughts are like that, right? Morning, then we are so goody, we want to do things, we want to set right things, we want to achieve certain things, and then we move on from there, be it a student, be it an office goer or anybody. I mean, this is applicable to everyone. So that's the mood. And then the activity mood they get into. After these two, then they want to like kind of cheat something that they, I mean, and then, you know, that time is when they think it's like a cheat day or whatever you want to call it, like, you know, so it's okay, I break a rule once in a way, that's fine, you know, become a little weak. That's because of ignorance. That is the tamogun which is coming up. And then even the type of music that they play, the places that they were fond, they would like to visit, and then the food that they want to eat or the preferences that they have. These are all the things. That is, one is wholesome, juicy, and vegetarian. The other one is spicy. The other one is decaying, and you know, it's the remnant that they would like to have. And even the state of mind. One, the goodness person is in happiness and knowledge. The other one is agitated and greedy. The third one is lazy, dull, very reluctant to make any spiritual advancement. So now, like I was saying earlier, the whole material world is geared in such a way that it brings us to this point of passion and leaves to run. That's the rat race that we are talking about. This whole rat race is the race of a passion mixed with ignorance or mixed with goodness. I mean, that will depend on the individual, but then it is driven by passion. Next slide, Prabhu. In fact, you know, any learning that has to happen, that will only happen in the mode of goodness. It cannot happen in the mode of passion. It cannot happen in the mode of ignorance. Because, like you take the simple example of a child who is very agitated or who is very restless, he'll not be able to understand anything, how much ever you tell. So what does the teacher do or the parent do? They'll say, first, sit down, stay in one place. Sit down and then make that child calm down a little bit. And then after that, then whatever you want to tell, you tell, then it is a little receptive to get that. So we know this, right? So in that way, we are able to manage the mood or the nature and then give the knowledge. You can't be, I mean, you can't give knowledge to a person who's lazy and sleeping and wants to procrastinate. He will not going to accept it at all. So they'll have to come to the mode of goodness if you have to learn. Just think about all the learning that you have done. And the best learning or the understanding that you had was when you had an open mind and you were willing to listen to authority, and then you were very calm and then not agitated. That's when you, whatever you learned then, that kind of you are able to remember. But other modes, it's not okay. It's very difficult. Hare Krishna. The next slide, too. Okay, I have the control. Okay, and then from there, can you just move on to the next, please? See, Krishna is also talking about how the characteristics of these people are, which I am covering now. So we can just, so the competitive nature, and then how there is a lot of determination in this particular mode we saw. And then different days that also we saw. Prabhu, we move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so what the scriptures say is, when we work in the mode of goodness, what happens? Then we get promoted to higher planets or better standard of living. And then if we are what happens is, like, great sages and devotees, they live in those higher planets, and then you get an association with them. Then death in the mode of passion, it leads to birth in the material world. Like it's like you kind of continue to remain where you are. And then if there is there is degradation that happens. So one is you go up, the other one is you remain where you are, and the third one is you go down. And we know that we will have to progress so that we are able to transcend these material nature and then move towards Krishna. So because of that, the mode of ignorance is, to remain in mode of ignorance is not a good proposition. We will have to come out of it. And then the mode of passion is also not so great. While we need passion for certain things, but then it's keeping that as the main focus is not going to take us anywhere. We'll remain where we are. And then the mode of goodness will take us to higher planet, which is a little better, and it opens our doors for higher knowledge. So
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, we are not able to hear you.
So can you now hear? I don't know how it went on mute. So I got disconnected.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Now we can hear
you. Screen.
Prabhu?
I'm not able to see the slide.
Prabhu, we can see, Prabhu.
Okay. So let's move on to the next this thing, Prabhu, slide. Yeah. So pious action in goodness gives good results. Action in passion gives us misery, and action in ignorance results in foolishness. See, now how to understand this is, Prabhu. Yeah. See, what happens is, anything that good that we do, which is pious action, it might sound a little difficult in the beginning, like getting up at 4 a.m. I mean, there's a lot of difficulty in the beginning. Like, it becomes very, very, oh my God, I have to do it. But after you get up and then you experience it, then you're happy. So there is a little bit of dissatisfaction beginning, and then after that there is satisfaction. So that is that's how it is in the mode of goodness. Whereas in the mode of passion, when we go behind happiness, what happens is, initially it gives a lot of happiness, and then we are happy about the whole thing. But then after the activity is over, then we kind of regret, and then we said, okay, probably I shouldn't have done this and that and all that. So this is where then we realize that it is not in the mode of goodness that what I'm doing, and this is also not very difficult for us to kind of correlate. We can do that. And what happens in ignorance is, it is utter foolishness. So where we are not able to understand, either when we are doing the activity also there is no pleasure, and then after that also there is no pleasure. So what, and then does it really matter, and that sort of a thing. You just go through the motion just for the sake of doing it, which is complete ignorance. Prabhu, let's move on to the next slide. And then animal slaughter is progressing towards the darkest ignorance. So that's another aspect that we should be aware of. And then the process of Krishna consciousness educates one to goodness. So from happiness and it gives us happiness and prosperity. Then the whole aspect is, even if there is a certain percentage of people who are in this mode, then there is some amount of peace and prosperity all over the world, because they are the influencers. They are able to change the atmosphere of wherever they are. You can see that. Some people, when they enter the room itself, you can feel something very good about the whole thing. The mood changes completely. So that means that that person has got so much of sattva guna in him that he is able to he's oozing with it, and he is able to distribute, or wherever he goes, he is filling it up with that type of a guna, and that touches us because we also have that sattva guna in us. Maybe it was not prominent then, but then we have it, so there is a connection. Whereas, of course, the opposite is also true. A person who's oozing with passion, when he walks in, then he'll be able to create that type of scenario with respect to others. And this is where personality traits also come in. Okay, and then even a percentage of people who are elevated, then they will be able to change. That's the understanding. And mode of passion cannot give satisfaction as well as peace. So there will be some amount of satisfaction, but no peace. Or if there is peace, then there is no satisfaction. So it's a tricky thing there. So let's move on to the next slide, Prabhu. And then what happens is, Krishna is saying that from goodness, there is real knowledge that develops. And then from passion, greed develops. So why greed is developing from passion? Because greed and envy is, if you don't achieve, we are passionate, we want to do something, we're not achieving, so we envy others and we become a little greedy. Even if we achieve, we are greedy. So both things, whether we achieve what we want or we don't achieve, either way, either it will be greed or it will be envy. And that's not a good thing to kind of have. And of course, ignorance is all foolishness, madness, and illusion. So that's what Krishna is saying. Prabhu, let's just move on to the next slide. Okay, this is a good slide. So it gives us the different modes of material nature in one picture. So where at the lower level you can see envy, ignorance, anger, and all that, lust, and all, greed, and all. And as we move forward, so one is in the mode of darkness, and then in the mode of passion, and then in the mode of goodness, which is a little bit of pride, then attachment, and all that. And then beyond that is Shuddha Sattva, or beyond the three modes, which actually takes us closer to God. And then the different degrees of goodness, and then the same way there is different degrees of goodness, not only in this material earth, but then it is even in the higher planets. The Lord Brahma's planet, which is the topmost, also has these aspects of goodness, but it is in a much higher proportion than other places. So what happens is, if you're in the mode of goodness, then we'll get promoted to higher planets. So we saw that. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Okay, we discussed this also. Can we move on to the next? I'm sorry, Prabhu. Can we just move back? Thank you. There's one aspect that I just wanted to know. Only one slide, Prabhu. So there's one aspect that we should be aware of. Unnatural deaths, it keeps us in ghostly bodies till our term is getting over. So the suicide is something that's not an option for ending misery, because people are so miserable that sometimes they think that's a good way out, which is in the mode of ignorance. So suicide is actually in the mode of ignorance, that they
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, we are not able to hear you.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. You're not able to hear, is it?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, Karthik Prabhu. I think Prabhuji is not there. Prasanatha Prabhu.
Oh.
One second.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think there seems to be a little bit of a problem with respect to my connectivity. It's not very strong today. So what I'll do is I'll not share the video because it'll take too much of bandwidth.
Okay.
So if you can hear me, then that's fine. We can proceed. So I was talking about indulging in meat eating, which is again an activity which is in the mode of ignorance, because the person who's indulging in that is not aware of the he doesn't have the right knowledge, so it's in the mode of ignorance because of that. And also the aspect of suicide, which is also in the mode of ignorance, which is not a good option because it does not end the misery. It actually transfers the misery and it becomes more painful. You know, what happens in a ghostly body is something that you should be aware of, so that you will know that that's not a good place to land up in. So that's one thing that we should remember. So next slide, Prabhu. Now, I was talking about how we saw these three modes. We saw very briefly about how these modes keep changing, and how personality traits are formed because of the proportion in which these are all there. Now, whatever is our position, be it too much of ignorance, too much of passion, or too much of goodness, all these three are not good, and it's not a good thing to aspire for. The only thing that we should aspire for is to transcend these things, and how we can move up and out of it. Like you go to a school to come out of that school, right? I mean, you're not going there even though you go to the best of the school. The intention is to get out of it. That's the whole idea, and that's why the parents put us there. So in the same way, the Lord has put us in this world and then given us these modes of nature to contend with and all that, with the expectation that we will transcend it and then come out to Him and then join Him. So it's exactly the same reason how a father puts his child to school, with the intention that he will go through that full learning process, the number of years, and then he transcends or moves beyond that school and comes out in flying colors, right? I mean, if the child decides to sit there, oh, my father has put me here, so I'll be here. That's what is the understanding of many people, and that's why I'm taking this example to tell you how that's not the right conclusion to come to, or the right attitude to have. So we should view this like that. So transcending becomes very important. Transcend means to go beyond. And then if we are able to transcend, then what happens? We can only transcend if we have a proper understanding of Krishna, of all his activities, which are transcendental to the three modes. So because everything about the Lord is divine. Janma karma chame divyam. Evam yoveti tatvataha. Katya deham punarjanma naiti mameti sarjuna. So the whole point is, Krishna himself is saying all my transcendental activities or my leelas are all transcendental. It's not of the material nature. So if you listen to that, then you will also be able to devotional service. Then it leads us to the level of Brahman. And that is actually what is the symptoms of a transcendentalist, what is the behavior of a transcendentalist. We will just see that as we move on. So next slide, Prabhu. Karthik Prabhu, can we move on to the next?
Yes, Prabhu.
So the first step for us to transcend is to observe our modes and what is influencing us. So that is why we say now, when we are in the mode of anger, then they'll say, okay, sit for 2 minutes. Or as children, we were all told, like, count up to 20 or 10 or whatever. And then so that we are trying to change our mode. We're trying to calm down a little bit. So understanding is one thing, and understanding what is influencing us. Then we are separate from our everyday activities and the modes. See, there's another knowledge that we should have. Whatever activities that we do is because of the modes of material nature. Think of that, the strings that are attached to the people down below and which is being pulled in the way they want. So we are not doing the activity. It is the modes of material nature that is doing the activity. And the modes of material nature is something that we have imbibed or taken it from our previous karmas. So from that perspective, we are kind of helpless. So we should understand that. Then the second, a man in Krishna consciousness is actually not affected by these modes. He will not get angry unnecessarily. So we see all religions teach this, right? So they say, don't get angry, don't have patience, do good to others. So do good to others is in the Sattva Gun. Not being angry is trying to break the passion mode. So on and so forth. So any of these teachings that you see, you can easily relate to these three gunas. Keep doing that, you will then be able to form that complete overall picture. Next slide, Dhruv. So likewise, even here, we will have to understand where we are and then try to work on it. Now, if we have to work on it, there is a way to do that. We'll see what it is. Okay. So now a person who becomes Krishna conscious, he becomes free from the miseries of birth, death, and old age. Then he enjoys life on the spiritual platform. So Arjuna is asking three questions then. So what are the symptoms of the person who is transcended? How will I know that person is transcended or moved up? What is the behavior? Is it regulated or whimsical? By what practices can one transcend? So we'll see what they are saying, and that will bring it to the end of the chapter. Next slide, Dhruv. Yeah. So symptoms perceived by oneself is we become very neutral to attachment and detachment. So if something is there, it is okay. It is not there also, it is okay. We don't get worked up and say, no, I need it now, or I should have it, or how can it happen to me? That sort of a thing. We don't identify ourselves with the body. And also we are in the mode of goodness, where we are neutral to whether something is there or not there. And then we are also free from hankering and envy. We don't constantly keep on thinking, oh, I need this, I have to have this, and so on and so forth. And then envy, if somebody else has it and I don't have it, then you're jealous of that person. So we saw in the earlier chapters, I think it was in the 9th chapter, where we saw how being envious is not a good sign. And if we are able to put that question to us, it was in the 8th chapter, I'm sorry. So where we said that if we are not feeling envious to other people, that means then we are making progress. Because this envy is a very nasty thing, and envy is because of ignorance. Why do we feel envious of someone else? Because we don't know their position. We think they have got something which they don't deserve, but that's not how it is in the Lord's scheme of work. Each one gets what he or she deserves, and there is no mistake there. And there is no, oh, by chance he got it, or he became lucky this time. And these are all words that are not existing in Sanatana Dharma at all, because everything is ordained and then it is known, and then based on what we are entitled for, that only we get. So if somebody is getting all good things, that means then he has earned it. He has done so many good things in the past life, and that's how Krishna is giving that to that person. So if we have this right understanding and we cultivate this understanding through and through, each time when we feel envy, we are able to think of this, then itself that envy quotient comes down a little bit, and then we realize, okay. And then why I didn't get, oh, maybe I'm not worthy of it right now. But anyway, let me just endeavor what I have to do and move on. So detachment comes, envy disappears. So a lot of good things happens, multiple things happen. And then we are unwavering and undisturbed. That is by the mercy of the Lord. So once we start this practice, then the Lord decides, oh, here is this person who's trying to overcome all these material nature. That's what I'm looking for. And then he tries to pay a little more attention. So he makes things a little bit more favorable for that person. So he becomes unwavering, he becomes undisturbed. So it becomes a little more stronger in that. Or he creates a situation which is more conducive to such things, so on and so forth. So Prabhu, the next slide. And then that person is always situated in the self. Yeah. So, and then these are all the symptoms that are perceived by us. Now, how are these symptoms perceived by others? We'll see. They are equal in happiness and distress, They are equal in fame and infamy. So whether they are happy or in distress, it doesn't bother them so much. Fame or infamy doesn't bother them. They see both stone and gold as the same thing because it doesn't belong to them. And then they treat alike both friend and enemy. Can we do that? And then they are renounced all material activities. Of course, these are all the highest things, but at least we'll start moving towards that. Then we know that we are in the right path. And then Krishna will give that mercy, extra mercy to us so that we reach there quickly. So, Prabhu, the next slide. And then what is this process to transcend the modes of material nature? We engage in transcendental relationship with Krishna. So we have to break this connection to mode, to material Hare Krishna, I just connected through another device. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, so we'll continue here. I'm sorry, there seems to be something that's acting up. This is the first time it's happening. Okay, so one who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the mode of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. That is what the scriptures are saying. And then, Prabhu, you can just move to the next slide.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. We cannot hear you. Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we can hear
So
you.
Bhakti, yeah, Prabhu, you want to say something?
No, Prabhuji. In between your voice went away, so.
Is the voice all right?
Now it's all right, Prabhuji. Yes.
Okay, so Bhakti actually perfects the knowledge of a jnani. So when we do devotional service, then automatically everything is covered there. And then we are filled with the right knowledge and the right attitude develops. So that is why Bhakti Yoga is, doing devotional service becomes very important, and doing it in a proper mood. The quality of the devotional service is without any expectation, surrendering completely to Krishna, and at once then we are able to transcend or move beyond the modes of material nature. So if we have to connect to the higher, then we will be able to quickly disconnect the lower ones, which are difficult to disconnect on its own. So we take the strength of Krishna and then connect with Krishna so that these things look very easy and we are able to transcend very easily. Otherwise, it looks like a daunting task. Oh my God, how am I going to get away with all these likes, dislikes, and urge and other things that I have? It's not possible if we have to do our own effort, like how a jnani or a yogi does. You know, he tries to go to the Himalayas, sit there for days together, try to bear the chilling cold and all that. Don't have to really do all that actually, because whatever you do there, that process is a different process. The most easy one, like they say, no? The Prabhupada says, why take the stairs when the lift is there? So the lift is the Bhakti Yoga. Just get into that, do devotional service, and then you will reach service. Will be able to actually experience this and say, yes, it is so true, and then they become happy about it. We have seen how in ISKCON, people who were into so much of ignorance in terms of their habits and other things, moved on and became such good Brahminical or even beyond that, Vaishnavas who were like radiating with knowledge and they were doing the right things. How did that happen in few months or in a couple of years and all that? That is only because they were able to connect to Krishna and stay connected. Then all this automatically changed. So connecting to Krishna through the Guru, through the Parampara is very important, and it will definitely take us beyond. So we don't have to, even if we don't understand the nature of material nature so much, it is still fine. I mean, we did discuss that, but if it's not understood clearly, it is still okay. We just have a little bit of a working knowledge of it. That's more than enough. But the main point that we should not miss is that we should be connected to Krishna through the parampara, through the guru, through the parampara system to Krishna, then I think we have kind of in safe hands, and by their mercy, all these things will get connected. But we need to be sincere about it and do our devotional service, which is the Navavida Bhakti, which is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So any one of these we do, that is enough to take us back to Krishna. So on that note, I'll stop here. Once again, my apologies. I think my connection was really acting up. But anyway, thanks for bearing with that. Hare Krishna. And yeah, over to Amaravati Prabhu. Or if there is any questions, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Anybody having any questions can please ask Prabhuji, or you can type it in the chat box. Okay. I think nobody is having any questions, Prabhuji. Okay, if anybody
Okay,
is having
Prabhu.
any
So
questions, yeah. So if anybody is having any questions, you can still put it in the WhatsApp group. We will try our best to answer. Yes, Prabhuji, continue.
yeah, no, that's it. So I just wanted to say then that's okay. So we can stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru ki jai. Nitai Gaur Sitanam Pramanande, Hari Hari Bol. Once again, I'm just praying my prayers to all of you so that you continue in your devotional service, continue listening to Bhagavad Gita, and try to transcend this material world. So Hare Krishna to all of you. So we can stop here, Prabhu.
Thank you,
One
for taking,
Kripa Sindhudevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Anant Koti Vaishnavrind ki jai. I think there was a question that just came up. I don't know if you want to read, we'll answer it later.
Yeah. Shall I read the question, Prabhuji? Mataji has written, Shavaya Mataji, as it's mentioned that eating meat is ignorance, but if we try to justify why don't we eat, they tell us that even plant is a living entity. Then do you eat? That is the question. Why do you eat?
Yeah, I think I understood the question. So that's a good question actually, because we just saw that meat eating is in the mode of ignorance, whereas if we eat plant, then plant is also a living entity. So there is ignorance there or not, or how do we justify what we do? So good question. See, there are two aspects. One aspect is plant is actually very low on consciousness, unlike a animal. Okay, it does not feel any this thing. Like, I mean, it feels, of course, but then the consciousness level in a plant is very, very, very low. Okay, that's number one. That's what some of the Vaishnavas have said. Number two is, we are actually not saying that we don't want to kill an animal and that is why we are vegetarians. We're not saying that. We understand, because in the Shastras very clearly it is said, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. The material world is such that one living entity sustains on another. And that is how this whole material creation is all about. But in the human form, when we are trying to transcend or come out of this birth, death and all that, then we are connecting to Krishna. So we understand everything belongs to Krishna. So we offer it to Krishna and then eat that as prasadam. So when we take that as an offering of Krishna, then those sins don't come to the person who is honoring it in that mood. That is why we say always offer what you're eating. And then somebody might say, if that's the case, then I'll also offer meat. But that is not allowed, because there is another injunction from Krishna which says, Patram Pushpam Palam Thoyam. So Name Bhaktya Pranachati. So just give me Patram, Pushpam, Palam and Thoyam. Nothing else I want. and then you can take it from there. So based on all these various injunctions in the Shastras, we are told that we should have a certain type of food, because, okay, there's another aspect that we did not cover in detail. The three modes also, there are three types of, all the food categories can be classified into these three modes. So sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. We saw that, right? So it is good to have sattvic food, which is vegetarian food. We saw that. And and we shouldn't stop there. If we have to transcend, then we will have to offer it to Krishna and then eat it as prasadam. So this is the right understanding as told by the various acharyas. So I hope it clarifies, because meat eating is ignorance, no doubt, but the other one is not, because they are not in that category at all. Because it is in sattvic nature and beyond sattvic, Shuddha Sattva nature. I don't know if I answered the question, but that's how it is. Okay, Prabhu, so we can stop here.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can stop here. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.